Known also as the Pareto Principle, the 80-20 rule of thumb states that roughly 80% of the effects come from 20% of the causes. When I first stumbled upon this little number juggle, I gave it little attention. After all, I'm more or less an artist and not a math enthusiast, though I'm actually fascinated by math. Even after a little bit of superficial reading about it, I wasn't convinced that it was of any significance to me, since it mainly finds usage in business finances. Again, not a numbers person. But then I heard it more and more in other contexts, and now I think it's actually quite a nice principle that begs to be shared with non-suit wearers. So how can you leverage the Pareto Principle to bring about 80% of personal effects with 20% of your personal causes, whatever those may be? Let's start with Pareto for learning. The Pareto Principle suggests that not all learning activities are equally helpful. Instead of trying to learn everything at once, you should focus on the 20% of knowledge or skills that will have the biggest impact on your learning goals. For example, if you want to become a portrait painter, don't bother learning to paint landscapes. If you want to do blackout tattoos, why waste time learning colorful old school designs? When you don't plan on ever working in advertisement, why should you beat yourself through 4 years of typography classes? The latter actually happened to me. So let's say you want to learn how to draw the human body. If you are a beginner, it makes a little sense to spend your scarce lifetime with details like the meandering cartilage of the ear or all the tiny forearm muscles that just get used when rock climbing. I'm thinking about that famous pinky finger muscle of Michelangelo's Moses. Those are neat skills to have once you're more advanced at drawing. But starting out, you should concentrate on the 20% that will have the biggest impact on your development. Proportions, basic anatomy, gestures, and some understanding of perspective to give it some nuance. That's it. There is seriously no need to sit hours on end drawing hands and feet. That can wait for when you have nailed those 20%. Well, hands and feet might not be the best example, since they're actually as important as the face, in my opinion, because they hold equally as much emotion. But anyways, what I mean is that as a beginner, you should focus on more general things first and toes after. Same goes for learning material. When you are starting out, don't spread yourself too thin over dozens of different sources for basic anatomy. Buy a Loomis and you're good to go. Or don't buy any book at all and just attend regular life drawings. You can never go wrong with life drawing. And then there's tools. Grab a cheap sketchbook, a mechanical pencil, and an eraser. That's all you need to learn how to draw. If you have all the time in the world, then sure. Get different kinds of charcoal, fancy vat paper, Conté, knife-sharpened pencils, dividers and smudging stumps, and experiment your soul out. But as a beginner, having such an array of tools to deal with will just slow you down. This here is all I ever use for life drawings and figure studies, even the big and elaborate ones that I plan on selling. And I don't feel I'm missing anything. Speaking about life drawing, a little shout out to my wonderful humans from Drink&Draw Berlin. Check them out if you are in my hometown. Alright, next on the list is Pareto for commissions. If you paint, write, or build something for a client or employer, and not just for your own amusement, it's necessary to concentrate on the parts of your commission that matter. Take commercial illustration as an example. It's sweet when you pay special attention to every little speck of reflective light in a character's eyeball. But you can keep those details for after you have nailed down the 20% of the illustration that actually sell. Composition, contrast, and core message. Indulge in details when the important part is done, and you really see that you have some extra time to spare for more personality and uniqueness. This is especially the case for commissioned work, because in most cases you don't get paid for your overwork. Debate me on that if you like, but in my experience it's the brute reality we live in. The exception always confirms the rule, but most clients don't appreciate or even notice those extra touches that we put in with love. It's about efficiency and bargaining, and you would do yourself a favor if you just put in those 20% of your efforts into a project that gets you paid those 20% of a client's actual budget. Also, maybe 0.01% of the viewers of commercial illustrations zoom that far in. Put that energy into flossing your teeth more often. That has way more important long-term benefits. Now let's talk about Pareto for ADHD. If you have ADHD, you should try every day and every single minute of those days to concentrate on the 20% of all your tasks that make all the difference in your life. I know it's hard to not build a new bookshelf right now, or research Victorian beauty hacks for hours, or learn how to lockpick. I have been there, everywhere. But to succeed in whatever it is you want to succeed in, you will have to postpone 80% of your daily self-imposed super important tasks. You owe it to yourself to focus. You can become a better poi spinner when you have gotten your main objective somewhat checked off your to-do list. I will make a separate video about focusing with an ADHD brain. It's quite a Sisyphean task and begs for an extensive discussion, which is why I cut this part short here. You get the gist. Or not, because your mind is elsewhere already. I feel you. Another important aspect is Pareto in health. I'm not a specialist for fitness, but I do try to work out 5 days a week, and I'm quite successful at maintaining a healthy diet these days. And if you look at it very soberly, staying healthy is pretty straightforward, assuming that you don't have a serious illness that complicates the matter right out of the box, in which case I want to apologize for my generalization. Just 2 things of all the ways to become and stay healthy are actually important to pay the most attention to: exercise and the balanced nutrition. There's more to it, of course, like genetics and stress levels and also sleep. But I want to just point out the ones you can actually influence with the Pareto Principle. I don't think we are so far yet to access just the healthy 20% of our DNA and turn off the rest. Let me know in the comments if I have missed out on some groundbreaking news there. That being said, rather than trying to do every type of exercise possible, focus on the 20% of exercises that provide the most benefit. Like compound exercises to work multiple muscle groups at once. Maybe also look into minimalist workouts or HIIT that concentrate on maximum efficiency in as little time as needed to keep you up to speed. It's tempting to spend endless hours with all kinds of gadgets and machines and do all the fun movements you see on YouTube. But most of us just don't live a gym life. We have a maximum of 1 hour to somehow stay healthy and strong. Some of us even less. So make the most of it. And in terms of nutrition, instead of trying to follow every diet trend or restriction, focus on 20% of dietary changes that will have the most impact on your overall health. There is no magic potion, and crash diets are just not sustainable. In the end, it all boils down to reducing added sugars, increasing vegetable intake, limiting processed foods, and cut down alcohol. And that permanently. Most times it's really just that easy. Okay, let's move on to Pareto in time. This goes hand in hand with learning and work tasks, so I will just mention it briefly. Think of tasks that are high value, high priority, or are time sensitive. Once you have identified these tasks, focus on completing them first and devoting the majority of your time and energy to them. Furthermore, try to do those high value tasks in the first 20% of your day. Asking myself in the morning what the one task is that I have to do today to feel accomplished in the evening, and doing that one thing right after my short morning routine had a huge impact on my own productivity. And lastly, it's important to remember that the 80-20 principle is not about perfectionism or trying to do everything perfectly right away. Instead, focus on making progress and taking action on the tasks that will have the most impact. Try to find a balance between quality and time spent. Oh, dreaded perfectionism. This is a big and important topic, and I already covered it in excruciating detail in another video. Let's not dwell on that then and move on to my last point. Pareto in relationships. It might be a hard pill to swallow, but 80% of your happiness comes from 20% of the people you surround yourself with. I'm sure that everyone has one or the other person in their life that we just see because we feel an obligation to do so. I might gain some adversaries here, but I don't think it wise, and especially not healthy, to stay loyal to people we don't feel a deeper connection to, just for the sake of being loyal. A few years ago, I made a new friend that I immediately realized didn't fit my personality at all. And don't get me wrong, I love differences. They are what gives life some fire and what makes you grow as a human being. But sometimes you can feel right away that things would go very wrong down the line with someone. In this case, I hoped it would fade like these things usually do. But somehow my new friend didn't see it that way and was seeking to connect even when I was already quite unresponsive. I then did something very uncomfortable. I broke up the friendship. I felt terrible in that moment because I don't ever want to hurt someone. But I knew it was important to give my time to other people. And even though I wished it had ended differently, I'm still convinced that I did the right thing for myself. I'm not a cold person, on the contrary. I have an incredible amount of love to give. But I want to give it to the people that truly matter to me. I cannot divide myself. And I want to give those important people in my life all the affection they deserve. Which unfortunately means that I have to let go of people along the way that don't hold such a special place in my heart. It's exhausting and unproductive and takes away my energy from the people I love. And looking at the grand scheme of life, I can't have that kind of wastefulness. Where a waste doesn't mean that the time spent was an absolute waste. But holding on to it for longer sadly would have been for me. You can't be everyone's friend. The world has become too big for us since the invention of the plane and the internet. You have to set priorities and stay true to them for your own sanity and happiness. It's unsurprisingly easy nowadays to be overwhelmed by the vast amount of choices we have in every aspect of modern life. Choice of diets, choice of marketing strategies, choice of podcast subscriptions, choice of oil painting colors. You might be tempted to take it all, but life would be much easier to navigate when 80% of the possibilities were just taken off the dinner menu. Choose one social platform to post your work on. Choose one instrument to learn. Choose one kind of protein for your meal. You can always add things when you've gotten a hold on your first choice. Even the realization that something actually doesn't suit you needs time and a certain level of initial dedication to show itself. I'm talking to myself here as well, for I'm having a hard time sticking to one thing too. And even if you manage to juggle several things at once at first, it is highly likely that your stamina will run out and you have to drop one or the other project along the way. Why not focus on those things with a big long-term devotion potential right away? Life is short. Don't get sidetracked by things that don't matter as much as the 20% that matter a lot. Time is the most valuable resource you have, and you will never get it back once spent. And lastly, never forget that just as important as your time is your curiosity. So stay curious. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, I would appreciate it massively if you would like and subscribe. And let me know in the comments what you are prioritizing at the moment and why you decided to do so. See you soon.